So I was going to upload a completely different video today, all about in bulk, as it's coming up soon. But I had a series of synchronicities that happened to me this weekend that made me do a 180. Now, I will upload the in bulk video later in the week, but today I'm going to talk about synchronicities and why we should be paying attention to them. So according to the Merriam-Webster Online Dictionary, synchronicities is the coincidental occurrences of events, and especially psychic events, that seem related but are not explained by conventional kind of mechanisms of causality. And it's used especially in the psychology of Jung. Now, Jung was the first to give these occurrences a name, and he said that synchronicities they were meaningful coincidences and that they occur with no causal relationship, but they seem to be meaningful. So synchronicities have been happening to me since I was awoken by spirit. Before then, I'd been kind of spiritually dormant and hadn't noticed them. Now, my awakening happened almost 30 years ago, and it was like a veil had been lifted from my eyes. So I'm no stranger to synchronicities happening, and I've learned that they're really important to pay attention to. So this leads us to today's video. Well, I had a series of synchronicities that happened this weekend that led me to really think that this should be the topic of my video today. So let me tell you what happened. It all started on Saturday, so I was going a little mad with my spring cleaning. Watch the in bulk video to know more about that. And I started to go through my various bookcases with a view to purging my many books. Now, I was being ruthless, and I mean ruthless. My goal was to keep only a few precious books that were important to me. So book after book I tossed onto the pile of move on to somebody else. So my hand reached for a couple of books on the top shelf, and a book called The Celestine Prophecy fell out. So this book had such an impact on me in my early days of awakening, and really how I came to know about it and read it was synchronous in of themselves. So I was in a bookshop in my hometown many years ago, and I was perusing the New Age section. I absolutely hate that description of this genre. It really isn't New Age, it's ancient wisdom, but that's for another video. So I was deep in thought when a man joined me, and he pulled a book off the shelf and he gave it to me, and he said something like, "This is the book that you need to read." And it was The Celestine Prophecy. He smiled and he walked away. So I kind of looked at the book and it didn't grab my attention, but I was learning to trust these strange little occurrences that had started to happen in my life. So I bought it. Now, I'd had the book maybe a couple of weeks before I read it, but boy, when I did, it blew my mind. I think I read it cover to cover in a day or two. My body was literally tingling when I was reading it. It was a visceral reaction. It made such sense to me. Now, fast forward a couple of weeks later, and I was on a training conference for my work. Now, it wasn't a huge event. Maybe there was about 30 people attending. Now, at the time, I worked for the National Health Service in the UK. And in my region, which was the northwest of England, well, we pretty much knew everybody who worked in our field. However, I found myself sitting next to a lady that I didn't know, I'd never met before. And we got talking about the conference, etc. And then she turned to me and she asked me if I'd read The Celestine Prophecy. I kid you not, it happened exactly like that. I was gobsmacked and amazed. And I think I said something along the lines of that, how impactful it had been, but I wish the book was real. And she laughed and she said, "Of course it's real." And then we got into some very deep metaphysical conversations over the couple of days that we were together, and I learned so much. And she answered the many questions that I had, and she just had such great insight into what I was learning, what I was struggling with grasping, and what I was hoping to achieve. I think she was probably one of the most profound teachers that I'd ever encountered. Now, I left the conference committed to staying in touch, and she told me that I could find her contact information on the delegate list. And I tried. I looked for it, but I couldn't find her name, her contact details anywhere on there. So thinking that she was a last minute booking, I reached out to the organisers. Well, they had no knowledge of her. They even questioned if I was talking about the same conference. No clue who I was talking about. I also asked my colleagues who were at the same conference. Nobody knew. Nobody had seen her. Nobody even had seen me talking to anybody. And I mean, we spent much of the conference together, but nobody had a recollection. It was like she never existed. Now, make of that what you will, but I believe that she was, and the man in the bookshop, well, they were sent to help me to further my knowledge and my understanding of what was happening to me. It's mind-blowing if you think about it. So I was newly awakened. I was searching for answers, and 2 angels came into my life to teach me. It still blows my mind today. Now, if you haven't read the book, The Celestine Prophecy, I highly recommend it. It's based around the newfound ancient knowledge contained in scrolls, all about the nature of energy and how we are evolving. These, what they call insights, help us to connect to our inner power and to evolve our energy and our consciousness. Big concepts that are very well articulated in a format that's easy to understand, because they write it like a fiction novel, and it provides a tantalizing glimpse into what is possible. So back to my room on Saturday, I felt such a connection to the book. I really didn't want to throw it away, so it went back on the shelf. And then I reached further and found the book, the second book, The 10th Insight. Now, I couldn't even remember reading that, but I felt like that I couldn't part with that one either. So that one was placed back on the shelf as well. And then I continued to purge. Now, the next day I'd forgotten all about that. It was Sunday, I had a bit of free time, so I thought I'd watch a show on Amazon Prime. Now, as I logged in, on the first screen was a recommendation to watch, well, it was the movie The Celestine Prophecy. I didn't even know there was a movie of the book, and I was literally gobsmacked by the synchronicities that were happening again and again surrounding this book. There was something to it. So I watched the film and felt the same tingling feeling that I'd experienced when I first read the book all those years ago. There's so many great reminders for me in that book, in the movie, of energy and how the world works, plus some really powerful messages for me that were so relevant to my now. And at the end of the movie, well, there's a tantalizing reference to the 10th Insight. Now, that was the book that I picked up and couldn't remember if I'd read it. Now, I'm taking that as a sign that I need to read the 10th Insight again, because there must be important things contained in there that I need to remember in my now. So I am reading. I'm halfway through it. A few nuggets have come up, but I still feel the big message is yet to come, so I'm very excited. And I'm also taking this as a sign that it's important for me to share my experiences of synchronicity with you, so that you get switched on to the synchronicities that are happening in your life. I have no doubt they're happening, but the trick is to be present enough to be able to see them, to take note of them, and then to take some inspired action. Now, I believe that synchronicities are the moments when our higher self attempts to establish a magical connection. It's a direct communication from the divine and from source. And it means that we're in alignment with our higher self at that very moment. And if we pay attention to what's being said, well, there are powerful messages and important information for us to hear. Now, if you're new to synchronicities, here are some examples of how they show up. So you might hear the same information given to you in several different ways, a bit like the Celestine prophecies from several different sources. Pay attention to those, as there's something important for you in that. Also, many of us see repeating numbers. For me, it's 911, 911, and it's a message for me to pay attention. Now, the naysayers will point to the fact that it's just random, but I don't think it is. Why do you look at your watch at that very moment or pick up the phone at that very time? When you see that number, you might see it written on the side of a bus, it might be spoken to you. Now, I don't ascribe that the number sequences have different meanings. I believe that these are synchronicities and they're asking us to pay attention to something. Maybe it's something that's going on in our life, or something that we're thinking or experiencing in that moment, and it's a wake-up call to pay attention. I remember a day when 911 literally followed me around. I saw it everywhere. It was the cost of purchases that seemed to be consistently $9.11. I picked up my phone at exactly 9:11 a.m. and p.m. I saw it everywhere. So something was important that I was being asked to pay attention to. Now, synchronicity can also be animals. So the same animal showing up time and time again. Maybe it's a real animal in a strange circumstance. Maybe it's an image of an animal, maybe a reference. Again, I remember having a white bull show up for me in very strange ways. Now, never a physical bull, but lots of odd references to it. So I did end up looking at what a bull and a white bull signified, and it really did connect with what was going on for me. And then magically, the references stopped. Now, I would love to hear if you've experienced strange synchronicities in your life. And if you've never heard of them or never heard of the term before, then there's a reason why I put this video up at this very moment and you watched it. This video could be a synchronicity in of itself, and how exciting would that be? So, not my scheduled video, but one that I feel I was divinely guided to do. I will upload my in bulk one later in the week, so please do subscribe and hit the like button. I'm excited to see my community grow, and you are a very important part of that. So ta-ta for now.